Welcome to Buckeye Turf Podcast. This podcast provides a general overview of the turfgrass species Agrosta stolonifera, commonly known as creeping bentgrass. My name is Carl Danneberger, Professor of Turfgrass Science at The Ohio State University. There are between 150 and 200 Agrosta species worldwide. The predominant species used on golf courses is Agrosta stolonifera. It is characterized by a stoloniferous growth habit. The stolon, shown here by the yellow arrow pointing to it, is a stem that contains nodes that give rise to new bentgrass plants. Creeping bentgrass is adapted to the temperate regions of the world. In this case, on this map, the green region represents the temperate region. Creeping bentgrass, in some instances, is also maintained in the subtropic regions, and on this map is shown by the yellow regions. Regarding adaptive characteristics, creeping bentgrass has excellent cold hardiness and would rank the hardiest of the commonly used cool season turf grasses. Heat tolerance is good to excellent, allowing for use in some subtropical situations. Shade tolerance is good, but creeping bentgrass is susceptible to poannual invasion under these low light conditions. Drought resistance is fair to poor. Of the commonly used cool season turf grasses, it would rank toward the bottom. Thus supplemental irrigation is often necessary. Currently, there are over 45 cultivars available for use. This was not always the case. From 1955 to the mid-1990s, there were only a few cultivars. Pencross, released in 1955, is the most widely used cultivar in the world. With improved breeding efforts, however, a series of new cultivars have been released with improved disease resistance and stress tolerance. Several of these new cultivars are also known to have a high shoot density. The new high shoot density cultivars like Pen A4, L93, Pen A1, Pen G2, and Alpha, just to name a few, and in some situations may actually have as much as 2 to 2.5 times the shoot density of Pencross. These high shoot density cultivars also tend to resist poannual invasion better than the older cultivars like Pencross. For example, the top middle plot in this photograph is Pencross, showing considerable poannual invasion, represented by the yellow patches that predominate through that plot, while the center plot of A4 has little poannual invasion. Creeping bentgrass is normally established by seed. Usually the seeding rates vary depending on the cultivar and the situation, but the range is between 3/4 pound to 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet. This photograph was taken roughly 2 weeks after seeding. Once established, it requires a high level of maintenance and cultural intensity in turf situations like golf course greens. The level of intensity of creeping bentgrass management is shown in the following pictures. This is a creeping bentgrass green in the northern United States, while this creeping bentgrass green is found in New Zealand, and this one is found in South Africa. As previously mentioned, creeping bentgrass can also be maintained in certain subtropical environments. In this case, this putting green is located in the southeastern United States. In this case, this green is in Japan. This picture was taken during the winter, and the turf surrounding the green is dormant and is of the species zoysia grass, a semi-tropical grass. Creeping bentgrass can also be found on greens in arid environments. For example, this green is found along the western coast of Australia. Or creeping bentgrass can be found in desert environments like Las Vegas. Creeping bentgrass is also used on tees and fairways. creeping bentgrass is especially well adapted to low mowing heights, thus requiring the use of reel-type mowers. Creeping bentgrass mowing heights are dependent on how it's being used in the turf situation, for example, whether it's on greens, fairways, or tees. Fairway heights range from 9.7 to 16 millimeters, or roughly 3/8 to 5/8 inch height of cut, and normally mowed 3 to 5 times a week depending on the time of the year. The vast majority of golf course fairways are not mowed with this many mowers as shown here in this picture. This picture was taken during the 2003 United States Amateur Championship at Oakmont Country Club in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mowing heights on tees range from 6.4 to 13 millimeters, or roughly 1/4 to a 1/2 inch height of cut, and again, depending on the time of the year and turf growth, may be mowed 3 to 5 times a week. For greens, mowing heights range from 2.5 to 4.8 millimeters, or approximately 1/10 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch height of cut. Normally, the lower heights of cut are what are required of the new high shoot density cultivars. Frequency of cut is normally 6 to 7 times a week, again dependent on the growing season. The mowing direction should be altered daily to help reduce grain. You should be mowing in opposite directions and vary the direction again daily. Grain is the directional way that the turf is growing. As shown here, by looking at the various plants, you can see that it's a rather random pattern and there's considerable amount of grain in this picture. Creeping bentgrass requires a balanced fertility program. There are several factors that influence the actual fertility rates, like soil type, clippings returned or removed, and weather conditions. As a guide, however, the nitrogen rates to apply are between 0.2 and 0.7 of a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per growing month, or this in metric units would be about 1/10 to 0.35 kilograms per 100 meters squared per growing month. Rates are less during summer stress times and may be less for the high shoot density bentgrasses. To control organic matter accumulation in greens, frequent top dressing is needed. In most cases, a light frequent top dressing program is used, especially on the new high shoot density cultivars. In this case, however, this photograph shows a heavy top dressing being applied after a coring operation in the fall. Although not a common practice, top dressing creeping bentgrass fairways once or twice a year is increasing in popularity. The top dressing is done again to control organic matter in the thatch layer within the fairway. Irrigation is needed to maintain high-quality creeping bentgrass turf. Irrigate to replace moisture loss from evapotranspiration and soil drainage. Generally, deep, infrequent watering is desirable. Afternoon watering during periods of high evaporation rates may be needed to prevent wilt. Creeping bentgrass will often turn bluish color when it wilts, or the appearance of footprints is a sign of the turf is wilting and needs water. Watering is important. Although this green is showing moisture stress, guard against overwatering. It has been estimated that 50% of all the putting greens are overwatered at some point during the growing season. This concludes this brief overview of creeping bentgrass. Subsequent Buckeye Turf podcasts discuss pests and maintenance practices of creeping bentgrass in more depth.